afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the September 9th, 2022 edition of News from the Front Lines of Business by DW Huff Consulting. We help you know your numbers so that you can grow your numbers. So here we are, Friday again, another week, very hectic week here. Going to keep this kind of short because this September 15th deadline for corporations and partnerships that are on extension is it's right on us. So it's making things very stressful, but anyway, here we are. So topics for the week. So based on discussions that we had with clients, a couple things come up. So as always, we want to kind of share those things with you. So first topic, going back to rental real estate. So on a tax basis, we consider that to be passive income, but you got to manage it. So is it passive or is it really hard work? And that kind of, I guess, reminds me of one of our, I guess, our 10 commandments here. I got to go back and re-enter those, but there's a lot of things that are very common to any kind of success financially. So hard work is common, keeping control of your assets and protecting yourself. There's a few things in there, but this is one of them. So hard work. So I think across the board, the ability to generate profits is always there, but it's very seldom that it's easy. And that's definitely the case with residential rental real estate. So there's an article here on this personal finance page here I saw, and I'll give you a link to it at the end if you want to look at it. But and it's this person kind of lamenting all the problems she has. So she's got some rental properties. She's had them for 15 years, done pretty well with them, made some money, and but at this point in time in this current market, this person is considering selling out. And the reason why, she gives these 4 reasons that the article discusses. Good time to sell, right? So we know the real estate market is very kind of hot right now. It's definitely more of a, I guess, a seller's market. The buyers are having to come in and offer full asking price, and if not more, to make these deals go through. So it's a great time to be selling. So that's one motivation. Additionally, she's come to the realization that landlording is not passive. So collecting rents and dealing with people who don't pay, dealing with all the issues with scheduling work and maintaining things and the taxes and everything else. It's work, all right. So it's not really like a stock market investment where you buy a stock, your dividend comes in the mailbox, and that's it. So this is definitely not mailbox money. This is work, right? And she's kind of emphasizing that. But also under the current environment, difficulty finding professional help. So in the same way that we're seeing these problems with companies that need to hire employees, so restaurants and being the most visible example, but groceries and pretty much every small business out there is having trouble hiring right now. It's difficult, and this is not unique here. So it's also an issue when you're trying to find somebody to come repair certain items at these at these properties that eventually are going to break. So the plumbing companies, the air conditioning companies, everybody else, they're a lot of these are typically smaller businesses, so they're having issues with their employees, and some of these sole shops also overworked and hard to get out there. So now you're having to deal with all these issues with things being broken and not being able to get a repairman out there quickly enough. So now in this case, her and her husband are going out there and fixing things themselves that they ordinarily wouldn't have had to do. So that's part of it. And then of course, this horror stores are going damaged. So she gets an article of a $18,000 repair, I believe, and I've heard stories too. Properties you have a tenant there for 3 or 4 years. Something breaks on the floor or the wall, something and they get in there after the person moves out, thinking they're going to quickly throw a coat of paint on it and get it back out for rental, and it turns out there's some structural damage that's been going on for years and that they didn't know about, and $25,000-$30,000 later the property's ready to be re-entered into the market, at which point that repair is eating up all the profits in the prior years and probably some of the profits going forward as well. So those major repair horror stories are very real and something to keep in the back of your mind as you acquiring property. So we still like it, but I guess we got to manage our expectations coming in here, that we're not thinking this is going to be mailbox money. That's definitely not the case here. All right, LLC. So that is the most common business entity we see here. So we know it's pretty easy in Louisiana and pretty much everywhere else I've been. Go to Secretary of State's website, you fill out a couple pretty easy forms. Sometimes you might need to get something notarized, but $100 or so, and you got your LLC in your most basic form. And a lot of times that's good enough for your single member companies, but larger operations obviously probably need an attorney to draft an agreement. But there's some other formalities that I think kind of get overlooked. So once you got the LLC, we need to keep it in good standing. And a seminar that recently gave an example of a company who they operated in multiple states and had LLCs and every one of them to handle the operation of their businesses. But in one of the states, they did not renew their paperwork on time with the Secretary of State. So the LLC was not in good standing. And I think this was this was a rental company. So they had some properties they were renting. Sort of the property management company in this particular state had fallen out of compliance with the Secretary of State's requirements. So a dispute ensues. They were owed rent. The tenant needs to get kicked out, so there's all kind of costs involved with that. That normally you file a suit, you keep the deposit, and you can sue them and go after them and try and get your money back through the court system. And that's what this owner thought he was going to do. Well, he goes to file the paperwork with the court. The court's looking to see who's signing these documents and what authority he has. So one of the ways they do that is they check it to see if the LLC is in good standing. So they check the Secretary of State, not in good standing. So now this guy has no recourse. So because this company was not, it wasn't an LLC, and because they were not in good standing, there was no legal representative available to file this lawsuit. So I don't know how they didn't go into detail about how it eventually played out. If they had to, just reinstate it and then refile everything and kind of just, prolong the process, or if they had to find some other way to get around it. But it definitely caused a problem. So it should have been a pretty routine, small claims kind of suit for a few $1,000s. Ended up being something that they just totally lost out on. So there's that. Also liability protection too. So if your LLC is not in good standing and now you are subject to some sort of legal action, your protection goes out the window, and now you are on the hook for whatever's going on. And so it doesn't limit your liability to what was going on inside the LLC. And also member management. So if that thing's not in good standing, and maybe you got to go open up a loan account or buy some type of big asset in the LLC's name. If you're not in good standing, you can't do that now. So now you have to buy those assets personally. I'm trying to figure out how to move them back into the company later. So it's just a mess. So every year, Louisiana, I find is pretty good about that. They'll send out an email reminder. It's very common to just kind of, ignore it, say I'm gonna come back to it later, and it doesn't happen. So I'd encourage you to, pay attention to that kind of thing, and maybe even put a little reminder on your calendar once a year to go back and log in the Secretary of State's website and just make sure everything's all good with every entity you got, every LLC you got, because something happens. It's kind of hard, I think, to go back after the fact and reinstate it and fix the problem. So with this deadline looming, I have nothing else to talk about really, except that it's football season. So it's Friday morning. Last night was Thursday night football. It was the start of the NFL season. So I'll leave you with a Lombardi quote here that football is like life, requires perseverance, self-denial, hard work, sacrifice, dedication, and respect for authority. So all the stuff that goes in football seems to be very much the same what goes on to success in our business life here, and it's definitely I'm in agreement with that observation. So that's it for this week, guys. Have a good week, and we'll see you next time.